Hello YouTube friends, Dr. Teresa here again, and once again today's video is inspired by Adam 3's question, and he wanted to know if I've ever had any luck feeding dwarf seahorses frozen food. That is a question that is asked quite often by new seahorse keepers or dwarf seahorse keepers. Personally, I've heard stories, maybe call them anecdotes, legends, or even fairy tales. I have heard people talking about having success feeding dwarf seahorses frozen foods. I have never had any luck myself. One reason brine shrimp is a successful food item in a dwarf seahorse aquarium is because it moves and it stimulates that predator response in dwarf seahorses. Brine shrimp is not a natural food item for dwarf seahorses. In the wild, they actually rely on copepods of various kinds that live in the natural habitat, those grass beds there. But the reason we don't use copepods in the tank, at least not as the main source for seahorses, we just can't reproduce them fast enough to be able to keep up with how fast dwarf seahorses would eat them up. Now, I have experimented over the years. I have tried feeding different kinds of frozen foods that might be attractive to dwarf seahorses, like chopped up mysid shrimps, which have a very strong smell that might attract them, frozen brine shrimp, even something called cyclops. I really have never had any luck getting dwarf seahorses to eat any of those things. Occasionally, if I mixed them in with live brine shrimp that is swimming around, if those foods are floating around with the live brine shrimp, the seahorses might inadvertently eat them, but I don't think they eat them on purpose. I think they just happened to see it floating by and weren't paying attention enough to realize it wasn't alive. So sadly, no, I don't think there is a way to get dwarf seahorses to eat anything in the home aquarium besides live brine shrimp. But along with this question, a lot of new dwarf seahorse keepers will ask, well, why don't you just generate or culture a whole bunch of copepods and just feed dwarf seahorses those? Well, again, people have tried this. People like me and others I know who've been keeping dwarf seahorses for many years, we have thought of these things and we just have not been successful. So even for me, my main staple for my dwarf seahorses is enriched brine shrimp, which actually is a little bit more nutritious than just plain copepods. But I do supplement with copepods, and I have done some videos about how I move my copepod house from my culture into the dwarf seahorse, and I swap the house out once a week. I'll do another video just showing how I keep my copepods and how simple it is. But essentially, I just feed enriched live baby brine shrimp or shrimp slightly grown out that has been enriched, and supplement with copepods. If you have a different experience, I would love to hear about it and hear what tricks you're using to get your dwarf seahorses to eat your frozen foods or non-living foods, because many dwarf seahorses I know have never been able to do it, and whenever I've tried, I just end up making a big mess in my tank that I have to clean up, and then I compromise the water quality. So I just gave up on it. But really great question, Adam. Thanks so much for asking it. I'm happy that you asked that because it is a question that comes up a lot for new dwarf seahorse keepers. Please reach out if you have more questions. These are really great. If you found this video useful, please give a thumbs up. As I've been saying, it really makes a difference in my channel when you give those thumbs up. And I always enjoy having you here with me. Thanks again, and take care.